Hi, I'm Oliver Pinniger, the best marketing intern ThreeWill has ever had, and this is episode 155 of the Two Bald Brothers and a Microphone podcast, where we talk about the people, process, and technology to work together better inside enterprises. This episode was recorded on April 4th, 2018. In this episode, Danny talks with Bruce Harple, the VP of Delivery at ThreeWill. They discuss Office 365 while communicating through Office 365. They dive into the immense functionality that comes with the 29 Office products, how to navigate the periodic table of Office 365, and where ThreeWill fits in to finding a solution for customers. Enjoy this episode and thanks for listening.
Hello and welcome to the Two Bald Brothers and a Microphone podcast. This is your host, Danny Ryan, one of the Bald Brothers, and I am here with, you've got plenty of hair, Bruce, so I can't call you a bald brother. I'll call you a brother. You're a brother of mine. How about that? Here with Bruce. We're doing this remotely via Microsoft Teams, which is a new thing for me. So let's always try new things, right? Always be up for new things. And today we are going to talk about a subject that I think is near and dear to a lot of folks, and in specific about Office 365. So get us started, Bruce. What do you want to chat about today?
Yeah, so what I want to talk about is kind of there's this great platform out there, right, called Office 365 that many enterprises are moving to. The value proposition is just so great. And it really is a sound and very large, we kind of call it a collaboration, communication, and coordination platform. And, there's kind of a good news and bad news story to Office 365, right? So, the good news is, man, there are 29 different products within this platform for you to leverage for, collaboration, communication, and coordination.
Uh-huh.
The bad news is, there's 29 different products within Office 365, for collaboration, communication, and coordination, right? So it's this phenomenal platform, but, it's almost too much. In fact, there's a SharePoint kind of blogger by the name of Matt Wade who has put together this thing. He calls it the periodic table of Office 365. And Danny, I know you can kind of probably add that link.
Absolutely. I'll put this up on the blog. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, but it's a great representation. I mean, it's a play on the periodic table, but it just goes to show you, how much functionality there is out there with Office 365. And the challenge, for IT organizations is I can't just turn, these 29, kind of separate, disparate functions loose on my enterprise because they'll be overwhelmed, right?
Yep.
And they really won't know. I mean, so a great example. So for communication, right? So do I use Outlook for communication? Do I use Teams? Do I use Yammer? Do I use Skype for Business? Do I use my news feeds? I mean, what do I use, and when do I use, Outlook versus Teams versus Yammer versus Skype for Business? So, it's creating it can create a lot of churn in organizations. It can create a lot of confusion if you don't have, a vision, a plan, a strategy for communication on this platform.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think, something that then, if you kind of take it a step further, right, you got these 29 separate, functions, right, products in Office 365, and what a lot of organizations want, right, is they want that unified, single, cohesive kind of homepage for their organization, right? So if I'm going to collaborate, communicate, and coordinate, with my teams, I want to have one landing page, one homepage I can go to, right? And from there, from that one page, I can do what I need to do. If I have a project team I'm working with, I can go figure out how do I get to my team. If I'm involved in sales and there's pursuit teams, how do I work with those teams? Or if I'm trying to consume, company announcements, I want it all to come into one place, right? And, kind of out of the box, when you kind of turn on all these capabilities in Office 365, you don't get that single unified, landing page for an enterprise. You got to kind of create that, right? And you got to kind of lay that on top of Office 365. So, the challenge, for companies is how do I consume all this amazing functionality, but consume it in an effective way? How do I wrap, a cohesive user experience around that so, people can consume it in a fast, efficient, organized way?
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that's the challenge, right? And kind of what I wanted to talk about, kind of related to that challenge. So, you know, how do I go after that challenge, right? How do I help my user communities out there consume all these amazing capabilities out there in Office 365 and do it, in a structured way and do it in a way that, maybe I roll out capabilities incrementally, right? I don't
Yep.
just kind of turn everything on and overwhelm people.
Yep.
I do it in an organized way, and I really kind of address the needs for collaboration, the needs for communication, and the needs for coordination.
I just got out of a meeting where we were discussing something similar to this, which was if you have like 6 or 7, I was joking around with Jeff Meyer about this, but if you have, so many different ways to share information, and it's so complicated as far as, where do I share, it ends up stifling collaboration. And so I think you have to take the steps to simplify. You have to, I know we've done some stuff internally at ThreeWill where we're using Teams, and we've turned off things like Yammer, and we're trying to simplify the whole experience. You have to do that because you can't just throw a bunch of different products at your end users and say go for it.
Yeah, and as Danny, I mean, we're big believers right at ThreeWill in taking something that's very, very big, right? And Office 365 is big. I mean, that's the good news. It
Mm-hmm.
does a lot, right? But we're big believers in taking something big and breaking it down into smaller consumable pieces, right? Don't try to kind of, what's the expression? Eat the whole elephant at one time, right?
Yeah.
You got to kind of break it down and just consume it in smaller, increments, that your organization is able to consume and be successful with.
Absolutely.
So, what I was going to do is just kind of, outline. So, kind of how does someone like ThreeWill, how do we come in and help customers, consume, this platform, right? How do we, instead of consuming it in one gigantic, bite, how do we kind of break it up and go after this kind of in an incremental way? So what I wanted to do is kind of, walk through kind of the steps that we would go through with customers, right?
Mm-hmm.
To help them, understand the platform, understand, how to consume it effectively for their organization.
That's great. Yeah, because I think it is like most things like this, it's a maturity thing, and you want to do this in phases. And how do you go from where you are today to where you need to be within as an organization? So awesome.
Yeah, and we really look at this. I mean, just like in everything that we do, right? I mean, we feel like we're a solutions-oriented, company, right? What
Mm-hmm.
we're doing is trying to help customers, build and implement, collaboration, communication, and coordination solutions. That's what we are, right? So, the steps that we would walk a customer through as it relates to Office 365, are the same steps we would use, back when it was just SharePoint, right? Or we
Mm-hmm.
would use if we were going to look at leveraging Azure for a more custom solution, maybe. So I was going to just kind of walk through the steps, Danny, and the
That'd be great.
podcast, this one, and we can always, in later podcasts, drill into more detail
Sure,
um,
absolutely. That sounds great.
as we feel fit or it makes sense. So step one, right, is really taking the time to understand your current state. So what are you doing today? And by the way, it might be you go after this focusing, just on collaboration or just on communications or just on coordination. How do we work together? Um, you don't have to bite all three of those kind of pillars of Office 365. You can go after one at a time. Um, but understanding your current state, it's really trying to understand who your users are, your groups are, their usage today of whatever they're using today, right, to do their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at policies, governance, security, but looking at, where are we successful and also where are the challenges and impediments, and where are the opportunities, right? For us to further help our organization, you know, um, work more efficiently, more effectively, right? So really just kind of understanding kind of where you are today, and really, like I said, I think understanding successes, pains, challenges, and impediments and opportunities is a key part of that, right? Because that's going to feed into, where your future state, is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of step one. Step two is really looking at your core use cases, your core usage scenarios. I mean, and this is really looking at, again, within the pillars of collaboration, communications, and coordination. What are the critical usage requirements within one of those? So this is where we look at, content management, enterprise integration and collaboration, portals, workflow, business intelligence, search, all those kind of functional usages of a platform like Office 365 that you want to leverage, right? But really understanding, again, what are those core use cases? What is most important to the organization? Um, so, that's step two, and then step three is kind of taking that current state analysis, taking that usage, those use cases, those usage scenarios, and then kind of designing that future state, right? So taking, and that's where in that future state, right, you're really saying, here's this phenomenal platform called Office 365 with these 29 different functional components, right? Well, what are those components am I going to use, and how am I going to use them, kind of within those pillars of communication, collaboration, and coordination.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is where you're looking at your overall information architecture, how you're going to do information management, how are people going to discover information, content, how are we going to share content, how are we going to collaborate together as teams, either at a corporate level, at a project level, at a department level, at an individual level, right? What's that future state look like, right? It's kind of designing that future state. And then step four is then developing the roadmap, right? So chances are you're not going to be able to get to that future state all at once, right? Because it's just going to be too much for the organization to consume, too much to implement and roll out, right? Again, back to my, my point about breaking things up into smaller incremental chunks, and back to kind of, as you know, Danny, we're kind of an agile Scrum company, and we believe in, that inspect and adapt and kind of do things incrementally, right?
Yep.
So, the roadmap is really, how do I get from where I am today, to my future state, and how do I get there incrementally? So what does phase one look like? What does phase two look like? And what's the reasoning behind that, right? So why does that roadmap look the way it does? Which should be driven back by, those core use cases and core requirements, the challenges, the impediments, the opportunities. It really should be driven by, mapping all that into your future state. And then the last step, and a, incredibly important one, especially in Office 365, is, kind of defining your governance model and plan, right? Because, in this environment, in this platform, you do want to govern it, because you want to govern the growth of the platform. You want to govern the usage of the platform, so that, everything, fits into that future state design you've put in place, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, governance is a key piece of that. So those are kind of the 5 steps that we would kind of, walk a customer through, and helping to get to the point where they'd have that roadmap, they have that future state, and they know kind of how to get from where they are today to, how they can really effectively consume this, this phenomenal platform.
Awesome. And is that done over a couple of days, a week, or what does that typically look like?
Yeah. So what we do, I mean, so the starting point, right, for anybody would be, we have what we call a collaboration workshop.
Mm-hmm.
And we structure the workshop. It can be anywhere from 1 day to 3 days. And, again, we spend some time up front really trying to understand, kind of an organization's, vision for, collaboration, communication, and coordination, and really just try to structure that workshop, to what a customer is trying to accomplish. But the purpose of that workshop is to, spend a little bit of time on current state, spend some time talking about future state, and walking through some of those capabilities in Office 365, right? And, getting to the point where kind of coming out of that workshop, what we have is, a communication, collaboration, and coordination kind of assessment with associated recommendations, a high level future state design, your Office 365, communication, collaboration, coordination roadmap, and we actually kind of have a product backlog and an estimation for kind of implementing that initial phase of the roadmap. So, the workshop is designed, to be something where we can, really, narrow in on exactly, what part of, collaboration, communication, and coordination, you want to focus on, and let's kind of get to where we kind of come out of that workshop with, an initial, view of your future and how to get there.
That's great. That's great. Maybe, and as you mentioned earlier, maybe we just in upcoming podcasts break these out a little bit more and go into a little bit more depth. That'd be awesome to do.
Yeah, and we could even pull our, Bo George in our, our collaboration practice lead, and maybe we do some kind of a joint podcast and drill into more of the details behind some of this.
I like it. That sounds like we got a topic for the next one. So, well, I appreciate you walking us through this. I know, there's you do have a lot of options with Office 365, and I know you guys we've been doing these types of workshops for quite a while, starting with doing some of the SharePoint deployment planning services years ago, and we're we've got a lot of different things that we need to cover to come up with an effective strategy and plan around what people are moving to within Office 365. And I appreciate the time and energy that you and Bo and others are putting behind this. This is great stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. We got a lot of passion around this. So awesome. It's we enjoy engaging in these conversations with customers for sure.
Yeah, but I know when we look at the practices with migrations leading to collaboration and then sustainment, I know the heart of what we do is around collaboration. And so I appreciate us having some good, especially workshops, some way of us getting together with clients and furthering the conversation beyond just sales and just really getting into the heart of the matter with things. That's great.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks for doing this, Bruce. And thank you everybody for listening. And I'll put at the bottom of this blog post as well, I'll put up more information on the collaboration workshop and how to learn more about what's covered during that workshop and next steps from there. Thanks everybody for listening and have a wonderful day. Take care.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody.